Welcome to Success Stories. I, of course, am your host, Stephen Jarrett. And today I'm blessed to have Wendy with me, who is not only a graduate, of course, of our program, but she's a wonderful alumni that continues to give back to our overall community and is one of the top voices, I would say, from a sales and recognition point of how to utilize this process to advance yourself forward and have candidate advocacy. So let me tell you a little bit about Wendy and give you a little bit of introduction of who she is. Wendy is a seasoned 15-plus year veteran, and I truly do mean this inside of great sales corporations, but even more impressively, she's been with some very large names. She's been with Certified Travel and Expense. She's been with Simpler, and now she, of course, has found herself landed with American Express Global Travel. And what's really great about that is because of her journey as being so unique and different for all of our listeners, you're going to see how her mindset and how she worked through her journey is different than many of our other job seekers. And one of those reasons why is because she came in with a financially stable direction for herself. She's done very well. That doesn't mean that she wasn't being very selective and extremely direct in understanding how she wanted to invest in her services, but she knew she had an amount of time that she could, of course, take through this process. And that gave her the ability to come in and be extremely clear on not just the culture that she wanted, but the industry she was interested in. And that made her a very different candidate because those things were truly more important to her than even the overall compensation package. That gave her freedom and flexibility to pick out and be very, again, mindful of the companies that she worked for. So you'll see that as we get into the topics. We'll see how she utilized a good bit of the program, but not all the program. And ultimately, I am so excited to have this conversation with her because she approached this whole journey that it was not about the grind and how to grind really hard as a job seeker, but it was really truly about her story, the alignment into the right company. And because she really worked on those two items, she came in and had the confidence that ultimately led her to have really quality interviews over a bunch of quantity. And she did that also as being a job seeker in 3 months or less. So she's one of those wonderful clients that we love to see, that 50% plus that keeps getting bigger, the percentage chance of doing that in 3 months or less. So Wendy, I know that was a long introduction, but thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Stephen, for having me. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, and I want to jump in with this and make a piece here, Wendy, because you and I have had a lot of good conversations. We had some one-on-ones, which I love inside this process, and we really got to know you, and I think you got to know a good bit about why this community was started, and I think that's also what makes this fun and unique about this conversation we're going to have today, because not every single job search has to be about urgency, right? And some job searches are really about choosing the right next chapter. And I really feel like that was something that you did so well. So do you want to kind of elaborate on that a little bit before we get into, say, we'll call it the meat and potatoes of our conversation?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, as you mentioned, I've had a good career. I've been in software sales 15 plus years and, had some great adventures. And like everybody else in this crazy world, I've had some not so great adventures. But I found you, Stephen, and your company through a dear friend of mine, Carla, who has been working with you for quite some time. And she said, I'm going to introduce you to Stephen, who is my life coach. And I love the idea of working with a life coach. And so when you and I connected, yes, I came to you. I was probably a little angry from the last experience that I had. And so we talked about the different things that your service provides as your elevator pitch, your superpowers, your marketing material, which is yourself, your resume, your LinkedIn, all that. And I jumped on several of your sessions that you offered. Tina, your partner, offers a LinkedIn session. She offers a resume session, and I took advantage of both of those. But then you and I work closely more on the one-on-one sessions to make sure that when I was telling my story, I was doing it in the most positive light. So when I came to you and I told you my story, you're like, whoa, we have to change that. we have to, switch up some words there. Your content is great, but let's switch it up a little bit. And you made it for me in the most positive light. And, like you said, I was very deliberate moving forward with who I was looking at as far as an employer goes. And I loved working in travel and expense. And so I'd made a commitment to myself that I was going to be looking at quality opportunities over quantity. I did have the luxury of being able to do that. And so as I went through this journey with you and I spending a lot of time strategizing on my opportunities, our conversations really helped me, I think, in order to land that role in 90 days.
Yeah, and there's so much value in that, and I love Carla to death. I'll throw that out there. So Carla, shout out to you, and obviously she's been an amazing individual who has, I would say, we've worked in so many capacities. I love the fact that you use life coach. That's like never a term I've ever used for myself. So that's fun. That's a good one. I'll have to share that with her too. That'll be great. But because she's building such an amazing business, and she's such a unique story in herself, and so as an executive, she's impressive. But anyway, so thank you for that, Wendy. That's awesome. But I think you touched on something that I'm excited about, and I want everybody to understand that yes, you have an amazing story, and you've been so successful, and you have done so many great things. But let's be honest, you are also pretty frustrated, and I would even use the word possibly even a little fatigued when we first talked, right? So because your story, even though this is a wonderful story, we've made it out to be, but you've been through some layoffs over the last several years, like a lot of job seekers, right? And you want to tell a little bit more about that story and give a little more background there, because you definitely have overcome a lot. We need to make sure everybody knows that too. This wasn't rainbows and sunshines and just easy.
For sure. Yes. The last 6 years have been very interesting between, COVID layoffs and restructuring and new leadership coming in and bringing in their own team. And I will tell you, I was a performer. I was a performer at all those companies, but, you can't control the things that you can't control. And I've learned a lot of that even though I feel I was a great producer and a hard worker and did everything I was told to do, if there's a layoff and your name's on that list, that's not a reflection on you. And that's what I've learned over time, to be honest with you. What you have taught me, I've now been able to work with other people in this community, and they're in the same boat that I was in. And they keep saying, wow, I've been through layoff after layoff. How do I tell my story? And I just let them know you can't control that, and a lot of people will understand that, and the right company will understand that. And so I think with all that said, yeah, we turned what could have been a negative over the last 6 years into a positive. And again, I credit you for helping me do that.
That's very kind of you, and I appreciate that. And I know that within the first, I would say 5 or 10 minutes of our introductory meeting that Carlos set up for us, I knew I had to work with you in some capacity. So I was really excited when you signed up, because that dialogue back and forth is a good example of you really do a good job of recognizing and understanding value creation. And I think that was, we teach that, of course, in the course. And for most sales individuals, they understand what that means. There's a level of that we all do, and if we've ever had a background inside of sales, but you do it in a very true relational way. And I think that's really special, and that needs to be called out in this, because you even though the story that you were telling, it was the frustration that was coming through, not necessarily truly any negativity. It was just you were tired and worn out and a little angry about it. And I don't think there's anything wrong. And I feel like so many job seekers feel that way every day.
Right.
Now, another big piece of this too is, I want everyone to hear this, is you were working with outplacement services, right? It wasn't like you weren't getting support. You had additional support. I think that's important, everyone, and you were getting good support. You told me before you really appreciated the outplacement service individual, and I want to point that out for folks too, to understand that getting support can look very differently depending on who you are and what you need. And you want to kind of share a little bit more about, with you getting that outplacement service, what led you to want to say, I want to not look somewhere else because you kept them, you used them, right? you just chose to add another layer on. What made you do that?
That's right. So the last employer was laid off due to the fact that the position was eliminated. It just wasn't a fit for the software for the industry that I was working in, if you will. And they were kind enough to give me outplacement service as part of my package. And, you know, I'm a big believer, take everything that is offered to you. Even if you take away just one or two tools, we all can learn something, right? We don't know everything as salespeople. We might think we do, but we don't. And so with having the ability to work with their outplacement service and layering it with you, Stephen, it was great because, as you know, I came to you and your program offers a great amount of material and tools and trainings. And I was like, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing that. You know, I don't want to do this. I don't, right? Isn't that the truth? I didn't want to do everything. And I'm like, this is what I'm looking for. This is what I need your help in. But having that outplacement service and working with somebody there too, you know, they provided me, you know, a couple of tips and tricks that you didn't have in your back pocket, if you will. So if anybody out there gets outplacement service from their previous employer, take it and talk to the people. And it's all valuable. You know, just think about if you didn't get anything, if you were handed your, you know, your walking papers and you didn't get any type of, you know, outplacement support. You know, I just thought it was great that I had the ability to have that from my last employer, but also work with you.
I think that's so incredible. And it means a lot to me. And what I love about that, and typically we have this conversation early on where we try to discover exactly what the person needs, and we try to identify what foundational treatments they need to kind of help identify then the key tactics they might need. And I think that's something that's important for everyone to know too, is we recognized early on, even in our conversation before you signed up, that you didn't need everything. That wasn't what you needed. You had a good portion of things all put together, right? But I think the number one thing is, and you said something familiar to this, or something to this, and I'll paraphrase it because you know I always have to do that. But it was more about just giving you the permission to tell your story positively. You knew how to do it from your training, and so it's that you didn't need the tips and tricks. Sometimes it was just like pulling back the veil to say you already know how to do this, and you're really great at it. So help share a little bit about what were some of those key resume or LinkedIn tweaks that you added in? Like what were those?
I think for both, it was just scaling everything back. Like what Tina taught me was I don't have to have full sentences, just bullet points. And she helped scale my resume back, you know, to 2 pages from 3. I think maybe I was getting a little wordy in both, and she was able to teach me how to say a lot with not a lot of words, if that makes sense. And, you know, the whole key is to, you know, get the attention of the company. And she helped me button up both my resume and my LinkedIn to do that with almost to the sense of less is more.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what was really cool is for everyone listening, and this is something you did really well. So I want to highlight this so that everybody knows one of the things that you did well. Inside those courses, you also took those really strong, powerful bullet points because of the success you had in your career, but you then converted them in your story to forward-looking narratives. I think that's huge. That then gave support back to your elevator pitch that we worked so hard on explaining the last 4 years. And it ties together. And this, for everyone listening, we teach a heavy loaded bridging technique. The idea, everything has to do with bridging. You're taking someone that's listening to you from one place, whether this is an interview, whether this is in your networking, and you want to take them from here and then lead them to what's possible. And you were exceptional at that. And it took just a little bit of maybe confirmation that you already had those things, and that confidence came roaring back inside of you. And maybe it was the 3rd time we talked in our set, and I was like, "Whoa, this is a new Wendy. This is the firecracker that I think I knew was there the first time we talked, and that Carla warned me about. I should say, like she'll get you."
Hey, Carla and I are a lot alike. You know?
Yeah, you guys have got some tendencies there. You know, you guys don't take no for an answer. I love it. But let's also talk about this, because I know that there's a lot of debate out there, and there's so much conversation around whether or not Is it a numbers game? Should you be strategic? And I know you chose the strategic path. We talked about that a lot. But talk a little bit about that. Like, you didn't apply to dozens of roles. You didn't follow the blind applying program for the most part, right? Inside of that we even teach. So how did this all actually come together for you through referrals?
I think for me, I just really use my network, Stephen. It's just reaching out to everybody in your network, letting them know. But not only reaching out to everybody in your network, I felt in my case, it was about targeting certain companies, certain industries of where I wanted to go. I didn't want to just spray and pray, as I was looking for a job. And like I said earlier, I was very deliberate in my search and knowing what I wanted to do. And when I was, interviewing with Amex Global Business Travel, I was talking to two other companies and was getting ready to receive offers from them. But this was the one that I really wanted. I love travel. It's my passion, both personally and in business. I love to help people with travel, and, being able to sell a travel platform again was very appealing to me, even if it didn't mean that it was the biggest package. Because you know what, while it might not have been the biggest financial package, it was the best package for me to make me happy. I've had jobs where I've had the biggest base salary, I've had the biggest commission, but did it make me happy at the end of the day? Not all the time. And so I made a commitment to myself that no matter what I choose, it was something that I loved and I was going to be happy doing it. And that's why I landed where I did this time.
Man, that's beautiful. And I remember when we were going through the anchoring kind of conversation documents leading up to these moments, one of the things we teach is so important that before you get to this stage, you have to have yourself leveled on what is the right job. Right? Because nothing that we do here is to get a job. We don't teach that in JSC. If you're trying to just get a job, you're not going to like the program. It's not going to work for you, right? We don't want that. We want you to figure out what truly that perfect role is, that dream job looks like, right? And that's why the right job matters, because for you, different than say some other of the success stories that we've had, this was this moment in your time where the leadership mattered, right? That manager to you, the communication that they provided. And I think this is important for all job seekers here too, that, you're interviewing both sides, and you did that so well. You engaged extremely well. You were honest. You were direct with them. And you told them what the expectations were from the beginning, and you weren't scared. You had the confidence in yourself to say, like, I'm willing to give in some areas, but I'm not going to give in others. So share a little bit more about that mindset of yours. And also let's give some kudos back to the hiring team with Amex Global Payments. They did a great job, right? They did.
Fantastic. Yeah. My conversation was with the hiring manager from the very beginning, and our conversations were centered around expectations. And we were doing this during the holidays, so right before Christmas. And there were a lot of steps that had to happen while the role was open in order for me to step into it with the requirements and expectations that she and I talked about. Patience was key here. But let me tell you, I got to give a shout out to my manager. I'm not going to say her name. She knows who she is. She was fantastic all through the holidays, calling me, giving me updates, didn't leave me hanging through the holidays. And fast forward, we got into early January, and, I was still waiting for the offer, but she kept me up on everything, where to the point I finally got my written offer, and 2 business days later, I was on a plane to head to their sales kickoff. So I think that communication is key. And even if you're not getting the quote unquote formal offer in front of you right away, and you think, this isn't coming, not true. If you have a manager like mine who's communicating with you through the entire course of the way, that I believe that this is going to happen. It's just going to take some time, and have patience, which is a challenge for us salespeople. It'll come through. And if I wasn't hearing anything from her, I'd be concerned, but she stayed in constant communication every week with me to give me an update. If there was an update, to let me know we're still interested in you. We're getting into the holidays here, and I think that communication was key. I really do.
Yeah, and I'll lean into one space here just so everybody understands the duration of time, right? So it was 5 weeks. I want everyone to know that. Now, I wrote that number down and I circled that because, in the holiday season, it's very easy for all of us to shut down as job seekers and to not pursue. And that was something you did not do. You stayed right on top of this. You followed up well too. You followed the 369 program incredibly well. I think you and I were in constant conversation through voice text during those treacherous few weeks where
Yes.
We were both like, oh my gosh, it's got to happen. It's going to happen. It's going to, but no, I, like you said, she deserves all the credit in the world because the words, the way she handled herself, I think gave both of us that calmness to say, no, we're going to keep some irons in the fire just in case, but we probably don't have to. And again, tip the cap to her. She deserves all that credit. And good quality hiring teams, and this is what I want all the job seekers here, they'll make you feel wanted. If a team is not making you feel wanted, that's a good indication that you probably might be candidate number 2, or very well, this may not be the right fit for you. And that you don't have to take that as a negative. It's just not the right time for you at that point, right? And in your case, even for this, you were such the right candidate. They actually were working on another possible option for you inside the company too, which I think is cool. So we don't have to go into all that, but you were definitely ultimately proving yourself because of your story. And I think you deserve credit for telling.
I will say that I do believe that when you are looking for a job, it's because I'm in sales. I know not every person in your community is in sales, but you always have to build a pipeline, right? You can't rely just on one opportunity. You have to continue to build that pipeline because guess what? If that opportunity did not come through, I'd have the other ones to fall back on. And it's the same way when you're selling and you've got a quota to hit and you're trying to build your pipeline with opportunities. If that one that you're banking on, you think it's a guaranteed, there's no guarantees except death and taxes, as we all know as we come into tax season now. But it's really important, while this was my number 1 job, it wasn't the highest package, as I had mentioned to you, but it was the right job for me and the right industry that made me happy. And I was willing to, be patient and wait till I got that offer, even though the other offers were coming in as well, and it was a juggling game. But it's important to know that you have to keep your opportunities flowing, even if there's one that you really love and say, I'm done, I'm slapping the computer, top down, this is it, because anything can happen. I've had jobs retracted before. I've gotten offers and then they've been retracted. And then where does that leave you? So it's really important to always make sure that you're not focused in on one. Maybe mentally you are, but you have to continue to keep that search going until you, I say, until they're ringing my doorbell and bringing my laptop to me.
Yeah, I think, and we do preach that whole concept, and you did this so well, waiting for that ink to dry, right? Even though that meant you were on a plane the next day, it felt like
right.
It was literally that fast for you. But I that the waiting is very hard, and I know that wasn't and I'll even call it a mental load that it put on you. And I think I want to share this with everyone because you're an incredibly confident person, Wendy. You're exceptional when it comes to that executive presence, the way you carry yourself. But confident people struggle, particularly in the waiting gap, right? So what would you say is a tactic? Now, I know you're the leader. She did a great job with giving you some confidence, but what else did you do? How did you reduce some anxiety for yourself? What were some of the actions you took? And what advice would you give to job seekers that might be going through this period right now, or they will when they get into the heavy hiring season, which is like late this month and next month in March?
I leaned into you. I was, constantly reaching out to you. You were great for letting me see other sides of this coin, if you will. I reached out to my mentors, and to me, it's all about communicating to those around you, your mentors, your life coach, where you think that it is exactly this way, and it's not, that they see it from a different perspective and they put some light in your eye and you're like, you know what, you're right. I didn't think about that, and really believing in those around you, as I said, your mentor, your life coach, that help get you through those times where you're like, it's done, it's over, I didn't get it. And you're like, no, wait, let's consider this, right? So I think it's really leaning into those people who are your support system, if you will. And even Carla, I would reach out to Carla going, I don't think this has happened, kind of thing. And that's not true. And she'd always provide a different perspective. You'd provide a different perspective, my other mentors. And I think it's really important that you reach into, you lean into your mentors during those times to help, if you will, back you off from the ledge, so to speak.
And I again, my 2026 resolution is to accept compliments. So thank you. I'm going to accept the compliment, then I'm going to move on very quickly because it makes me incredibly uncomfortable. But thank you. But I really want the piece here for everyone to understand that when you're a part of our Foundation Plus package that we have, you get access for voice to text, you get access for direct, conversation, and we want to keep that as active as long as we possibly can. So if you're out there and you are struggling with some of these moments, do find that and use that. It doesn't have to be always in a coaching program or something, or a career service program. But what you said, like using Carla, and if you've got friends and family, then lean into those. The key thing that I'll tell you is make sure it's someone who will give you a reality check, right? I think that's really important because if they're not comfortable and confident enough with you to be direct and honest with you, and they just agree with you, that's not what you need, right? One of the things that we worked really hard on was really protecting the narrative that company was doing all the right things, right? And it's easy for anyone to start to have doubt because, and this is just, I love data points, so I'll give you a data point. The APA understands this and did a whole study on this, on how when you put stress, when your body's under any form of stress, and cortisol levels rise and things of that nature, particularly when it's through to job search or job loss, it is the same as the feeling of death or financial loss. You can't fully understand it until you're in it. So for all my job seekers out there listening, they get it right now. They understand how doubt creeps in about everything. Identity, was I even supposed to be doing the job I was doing? Was I really that great of a what? Yes, you were. I'll just answer the question for you. We're great, right? But that all creeps in there. So I think that's important. And to kind of tie off of that, let's talk about the community. I think this is an anchor point of what makes JSC so different than, say, many other groups. And that's the free JSC community that's out there. And then, of course, when you're part of our package, you get the elevated group, which is true. But talk to me about the community, right? Let's talk a little bit about, your view of that community and how you utilized it or didn't utilize it.
I think the community is awesome. You've got people like myself who are in sales. You've got communications and marketing people. You've got IT folks and everything. And one of the things I love to do is I love to mentor, good, bad, or indifferent, whether it's solicited advice or unsolicited advice. And we were on first Friday, and one of your members is really struggling. He's been out of work for a while and stuff. And as we were talking, I went out to LinkedIn and I looked him up and I was like, hey, I'll use the guy's name, Joe. It's not Joe, but Joe, did you see that, Stephen? We're connected together. He's a good friend of mine. And that started a conversation with Stephen calling Joe to help him get through his days that he was kind of down and everything, and continue to support those people through mutual connections. Another person who's in communications, I have a friend who's been in communications for many years. I was able to connect them. And so the two of them spoke. And to me, it's not about me, Stephen. I'm, like you said, I'm confident, and it hasn't always been like this. It's just come through my career and my mentors and the people that I've worked with over the years. And so some people don't have that confidence. And so the fact that I can help give back, I love doing that. I spoke with a member yesterday who's been out of work for a little bit and had an interview upcoming and was asking me, hey, how did you tell your story? How can, give me some ideas? And I did that, and just being able to help. That's how the community, I benefited from it, was to help others, is what I really enjoy doing.
Yeah. And this is such a good segue. Because when we were designing and building out the layers of what we wanted JSC to be and how we wanted it to be different than any other career service program, this was a primary anchor point. And the reason why is because I know from studying leadership and understanding the nuances of the psychological movement of that, the greatest leaders always master that skill by teaching. And so if you really want to understand how that works, peer-to-peer contribution increases confidence retention. So when the community works together, right, whether the foundational training or something we teach or somewhat maybe it was from a different career service group even teaches something, but two people come together and then they share that and they discuss it and they teach each other that, the odds of them retaining that and then implementing that go up exponentially. The same thing with the concept of mentorship. Mentorship benefits all sides psychologically. You will never not be, in my opinion, a career coach from here on out, Wendy. You have earned that right. And that's why we give the alumni badge and everything else, because when you go through this, whether you take every single course or whether you absolutely absorb everything and just go down that path, you will forever be able to relate to a job seeker and give them advice on a hard day. And that, in my opinion, is worth everything that we're doing. And you have embodied that, and that's why I said that in the beginning. And so I thank you, because this community wouldn't be what it is without all of our alumni, but particularly for someone like you who's willing to give up 30 minutes out of their day just for a phone call, 10 minutes, that's incredible. And so for job seekers all out there, and we've all been there at some point, and we started the network and you couldn't get a hold of somebody, that is hard. But because of people like you, it makes it a whole lot better. So thank you for that. I really appreciate that.
Oh, my pleasure. I love to do it.
Yeah. All right. So I have we'll call it my favorite question, but you know I don't have favorites because that would be wrong. But if I did, this would be it. Okay. There are a lot of job seekers out there, all shapes, all sizes in their search. What would you want to say to someone listening who is at a different stage, maybe of their search, maybe it's confidence? What would you say to them, and how would you try and relate to them? And how would you direct them that your story can help them?
Oh, that's a good one, Stephen. I think, first of all, I would say I've been where you're at, and not only have I been there once, I've been there twice, I've been there 3 times, maybe more. You have some people that have said in the community, I've never been part of a layoff. This is the first one. So after you get over the shock, the reality sets in. Okay, I have to find a job. I have a mortgage to pay. I have rent to pay. I have a family to feed, if that's your situation. And you dust yourself off. It does affect your ego at the beginning, but then the reality sets in. Who do I lean into? I lean into my community, which is my network, which is maybe family, and friends that know people at companies. It is a full-time job to look for a job, right? And when you have resources like Stephen and his team, that's great if you can be a part of the community, because other people are going through what you're going through. And it's great to have that sense of community, because you can throw ideas off of each other, and you have to stay focused. It's like working a job, 40 hours a week, like you said, the 3-6-9. If you do get an interview, 3 days reach out, 6 days reach out, 9 days reach out, and everything else that you teach in your program. I think it's huge. If you sit back and you lay in bed and you wait for the phone to ring, it's not going to ring, right? So it's really important that you are proactive and get yourself out there and make sure that you're in a community, whether it be Stevens, your church, your temple, LinkedIn, no matter what it is, and just get with the community and network, and have a plan. You have to have a plan.
Man, I love that so much. And I think a couple of things that I hear when you say that, right, is I think confidence grows as clarity grows, right? And I think that's something that even you experienced as someone who's an incredibly confident person. And I think it's also something to say that I throughout our conversation, I have heard, and many of our other conversations too, is that happiness is really more important than money. But I'll say this differently. Happiness is more important truly when you define it in the way that you want to move through the relationships in your life. Because money is important to a certain point. We all need safety and security through that. But your definition, I think, that you've shared with me in the past around that is so beautiful. It's something I've adopted for my own family this year, right? As you have shared, I appreciate that. And I think the other thing that I want people to understand is, being selective is not entitlement. As a job seeker, it is totally okay to say no. It's totally okay to have a small funnel. It's okay. And what that really is that's called clarity. And is that the perfect strategy for every single job seeker? Of course not. If you're brand new out of school, or if you've just got a couple years underneath your belt, you may not have that ability, right? But that's the reason why it's important for you to have the clarity to know what strategy. And I think for a lot of folks, they're scared of that strategy. So I want to make sure I
think I agree with you because, I agree with you because we're all scared of failure, right? Or not all. I won't use that as a blanket statement. People are scared of failure. So the idea of having a strategy, if it doesn't hit the first time, you think, oh, I failed, I'm not going to do that again. But that's not true. It's consistency. As we sit here and watch the Olympics, they're the best of the best of the best. So those are your top salespeople. Those are your top engineers. Those are your top executives, right? They are the best of the best. And how did they get there? Practice, practice, practice. It's the same thing for us as job seekers when we're out there. It's practice, practice, having a focus and doing it over and over again. The only thing I can do is just equate it to the Olympics now and watching those unbelievable athletes out there. They didn't get there by sitting in their bed every day and crying,
No, they didn't, right? They didn't. And I'll even go as far, we talked about this actually in the networking class, and I'll share this with everybody, right? If I were to tell you, and you can pick any arbitrary number you want, but let's just say 100. If I were told you had to fail 100 times at this crazy concept of job seeking in this market, everyone would hustle towards that 100th time, right? The truth of the matter is, if you have clarity on what you're doing, right, then it's never about a hustle culture. It's just not, right? It's about not being panicked is the key, because if you can control that, right, then you'll choose intentionally. And I think your story really beautifully articulates that. And it's not, that doesn't mean that it didn't start out with maybe some worry or some concern or some frustration. But I think the key here is for everyone to understand where you are, accept where you are, and then make a choice. And if you make the choice to move, like you're saying, then that opens up the opportunity to give yourself some chances. And then if you embrace those chances and you say yes to some things, then change can happen. And if you do that and you do that well, you will win this crazy thing we call life. And in this moment, all your lack of a job is just a season. It's just a season. It will come and it will go and it will leave, and something else will emerge and you will feel it with something new, right? So I'll close this with this, Wendy, before I say thank you so much to you. I'll say this to everyone. If Wendy's story resonated with you, if you're similar to Wendy, right? Or maybe you're on the opposite side of this and you're in a whole different world where maybe it's not frustration and anger, you're confused, right? That's okay. If you have confusion, that's okay too. The point is here, come be a part of this community. You don't have to give us $1. It's free. Join the world. Listen to us. Check out some of the videos. Meet Wendy. Talk to some folks inside the community and realize that this is all possible for you to take the steps forward. And the cool part about it is, and I have 7 more of these success stories we need to film, but the point of this is when you have great people around you and you're being pushed by people who are going through the same things as you, the data shows you will move with the group, and that's why it's so important. So Wendy, thank you for being a driver, first of all, of the group. Thank you for trusting in us, and I would say trust Carla, but we all know Carla's right, so we have to trust Carla when she makes recommendations. We've also said her name like 5 times. She's going to get a kick out of that. But thank you, Wendy. You're a friend of mine at this point. You're someone I will continue to communicate with you for the rest of our lives. I have no doubt about that, and I truly do. Thank you for coming on here and sharing your story with everybody. My pleasure, and just so wonderful meeting you, Stephen, and gaining a new friend as well as a life coach. Yeah, a life coach. That's cracking me up with that. So thank you, and everyone, please, obviously, you know where to find us, and if you don't, look in the bios, subscribe, follow along. We're here to help you the best that we possibly can, and something that I am definitely embracing right now is understanding that, if you step into this world and you come be a part of it with us, we will all grow together. I will continue to get better. You're going to continue to get better. And most importantly, because of peer-to-peer interaction, the entire community gets better every single day. And we are getting ready to cross the 400 barrier of members. And that blows my mind, Wendy. So thank you for being a part of that.
Of course. Thank you.